Recently, various industries in China have reported that the entire sector is facing difficulties due to the economic downturn. I'm not sure if this is the correct expression, but it seems that the industries that are most extravagant are taking the biggest hit. A few years ago, these industries were used by the wealthy to flaunt their wealth, but now they are suffering the most. There are too many industries to talk about, so I'm unsure where to start, but today I want to focus on the wine industry in China. First, let me introduce an article. The first two characters of the title, when read in Japanese, are Guizhou, which is the name of a company. This company is a Chinese wine manufacturer. You might think, wait, does China even have domestic wine? Yes, China has its own wine producers, and Guizhou is one of the representative companies. The title refers to the fact that both sales and profits of Guizhou have decreased in the first half of this year. Regarding their performance, their sales for the first half of this year were 21 million yuan, a 22.68% decrease compared to the same period last year, marking the lowest level in the past 10 years. By the way, this company not only produces wine but also brandy. When you think about it, it makes sense because brandy is made by distilling wine. When breaking down the sales of wine and brandy, wine sales decreased by 12.6%, but brandy was even worse, with a 29.97% decrease, almost a 30% drop. This suggests that the higher-priced products are not selling well. In the past, there was hardly any wine consumption in China. Before China's economic development, wine was rarely consumed and seldom seen on store shelves. However, after China joined the WTO, wine consumption started to become more common. In fact, in the 16 years after joining the WTO, wine consumption in China increased more than tenfold. However, since the original consumption was very low, even though it increased tenfold, the change wasn't that significant. I will explain the overall industry numbers later. In contrast, beer consumption in China rapidly increased, and traditional distilled spirits such as Baijiu also experienced significant growth. Baijiu, which is made from grains and has a very distinctive aroma, has seen a dramatic increase in consumption. However, wine has not experienced the same level of growth. Wine consumption increased until around 2011. When I lived in Shanghai, wine was actually in vogue. When I asked why, I was told that it's because of China's ganbei culture. After business negotiations, it's customary to go out for a meal and make toasts with alcohol. However, for those who are not good at drinking, this can be like hell. The alcohol used for toasting is usually baijiu, which has a very high alcohol content. For those who enjoy alcohol, it's not a problem, but for those who don't, it can be unbearable. People in power often have to attend multiple banquets in a day, making it even more difficult. As a result, wine, which has a lower alcohol content compared to baijiu, started to become popular. You might think, isn't beer lower in alcohol content? But in China, when hosting guests, offering expensive alcohol is important. Wine has a wide price range, with the expensive ones being extremely pricey. For example, in 2010, a bottle of 1982 Chateau Lafite Rothschild was sold for 75,000 yuan, about 1.5 million yen. This price is higher than that of baijiu. Therefore, when hosting Communist Party officials or discussing land development, high-end wine was highly valued. Even though wine has a lower alcohol content than baijiu, its high price satisfies the status of the guests, and it's less harsh to drink than baijiu. Beer may have a lower alcohol content, but it lacks luxury, so serving beer at a banquet can be seen as disrespectful to the guests. That's why wine started to be chosen for such occasions. However, the popularity of wine has its limits, and one of the reasons is that wine culture has not fully integrated into Chinese food culture. Wine is usually enjoyed with food, and it needs to pair well with meals. However, Chinese cuisine, especially in certain regions, tends to have strong and intense flavors, which do not necessarily complement wine. I think you can see similar situations in Japan. Sake pairs exquisitely with Japanese cuisine, and while wine does not necessarily clash with Japanese food, sake often feels more natural. In China, baijiu, huangjiu, a yellow liquor made from rice, and beer are more commonly consumed, and wine has not yet deeply rooted itself in daily life. Wine consumption peaked in 2011, but by 2021, it had decreased to less than a quarter of its peak. The decline in the industry is not only related to the economic situation but also to the fact that wine culture has not deeply penetrated Chinese society.